Sorry, I don't know what happened.
I think we're live now.
We are live. You can begin and shout.
Great. Hello, and welcome to the new Center for Research and Practices public session with the programmers. The new center is a para-academic institution that offers cutting-edge seminars on art, philosophy, and the humanities in general. Within it, we run 4 certificate programs, each of them led by one of our programmers. Transdisciplinary Studies by Jason Mohaghegh, Critical Philosophy run by Reza Negarestani, Art and Curatorial Studies run by Cécile Malaspina, and History, Design, and World Making by Thomas Moynihan. Aside from the programmers and the organizer, we also have Rafael here, who is responsible for student services at the new center and will clarify some frequently asked questions and respond to any queries you might have about the process towards the end of today's session. My name is Cécile. I am a full scholarship student at the new center and also at the Bartlett School of Architecture at UCL. And I recently joined Arbeit Gallery as the production manager. And I'm really excited to be part of this public session that inaugurates fall-winter 2023-24. As some of you may know, applications for the certificate programs are currently open with the possibility of receiving full and partial scholarships. And if you're considering applying, this is a great chance to know about the new center as an institution, to meet the programmers, and also to know more about the upcoming seminars. Just a reminder that applications are open until the 28th of August, 2023, midnight. They should include a cover letter and a writing sample showcasing your intellectual interests and clarifying your need for financial relief. Applicants from the Global South will be automatically considered for 50% scholarships. Half of our full scholarship recipients are from the Global South and half are women. I'd like to now invite Mohammad Salemy, the organizer of the new center, to speak about the history of the new center and some novelties we are bringing with the upcoming season.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the audience who are listening, but more so thanks to our programmers who have taken time out of their busy schedule to be here to inform you about what they've planned for this upcoming season at the new center. We are approaching our 10th anniversary, and as a result, we're trying to deepen our commitments to parallel academia this semester and the next, and reshape several of our initiatives. It's been almost a decade, and I'd like to briefly account the story of New Center for our new applicants and also those who have recently joined our programs. The New Center was founded by Jaden Adams, myself, and Tony Yannick in 2014, following the first edition of the Incredible Machines Conference, which was held in March 2014 in Vancouver, Canada. From the outset, our central mandate has been to offer new possibilities for our members and students, particularly those engaged in their work outside or at the intersections of existing institutional frameworks in arts, humanities, and sciences. We aim to assist individuals transitioning between degrees, fields, or research agendas in connecting with other research networks beyond their traditional academic background. Over the past decade, the seminars I have organized under the direction of our programmers have consistently aimed for a balance between established scholars and emerging voices, both from within and outside traditional academic spheres, and recently more so from our own body of graduating certificate students. Currently, I serve as the acting organizer of the new Center for Research and Practice. I am also the only founding member still actively engaged in the administration of the institution since Tony Yannick departed in 2016 to pursue a PhD in philosophy, and Jaden Adams departed in 2019 to focus on his individual career. Throughout our tenure, we've evolved in many ways, leading to the format many of you recognize today. In 2018, Reza joined us as the programmer for the critical philosophy, succeeding Levi Bryant at that capacity. And in 2019, Jason Mohaghegh assumed the role of programmer for our transdisciplinary studies program, a position which was vacant since Yannick's departure in 2016. And in 2020, we launched a new program centered on architecture and design theory led by Carla Leto and Ed Keller. In 2021, I walked away slowly from overseeing the arts and curatorial program, entrusting it to our present programmer, Cécile Malaspina. And in 2023, just recently, marking the culmination of a 3-year design research journey by Ed and Carla, we are rolling out the History, Design, and Word-Making program with Thomas Moynihan at the helm. He will be delving deeper into his proposal during today's discussion. Over the course of our 10-year journey, we've constantly revisited and enhanced our seminars. More recently, recognizing a growing demand for skill-based workshops in the humanities, we initiated some of these workshops aiming at developing specific skills. Currently running, we have a writing workshop seminar led by Ross McEwen and Shiona Trescassis. Subsequently, we launched a prompt writing workshop, Hybrid Intelligence, Generative AI, and Human Cognition, by Berlin-based artists and designers Jamoka Fernandez and Sebastian Zimmer-Hackel. This new season, we also bring 2 additional workshops: documentary practice workshop between verification and construction by Manuel Correa, and publishing workshop, methodologies for writing and dissemination, steered by critic Maria Ines Plaza Lazo, the visionary founder and publisher of Berlin's street newspaper, Arts of the Working Class. Furthermore, we're in the process of devising a workshop centered on AI as a pivotal research instrument for humanities. Stay tuned for more details on this soon. This will be a very amazing workshop where we will announce it as this season rolls, which will allow people to basically develop APIs that would then let them focus the open AI tools to search particular or learn particular sets of documents and books, would then help scholars research their material for their dissertations or for essays they're writing. Moreover, we wish to emphasize our steadfast dedication to hosting public programs that resonate with significant shifts in the intellectual field. Our history is interwoven with these programs, serving as platforms to engage and address critical concerns. There's a big list of this that goes back to 2014. I try to not go over everything. In 2016, we initiated an AGI Accelerate General Intelligence series, brought a ton of people to New York, to Pratt Institute, and to the New School, which was also co-sponsored by us, the New Center, talking about like the emerging AI. And in 2019, we did the first iteration of our Venice Biennale interview program called Hyper Annotations. And in 2022, we repeated that in Venice, and we're planning to do another one in 2024 during the opening days of Venice Biennale. Over the course of the last year, we also held the 2nd edition of Incredible Machines Conference with the financial support of the Canada Council and the help of Richmond Art Gallery in Canada. And we hosted a particular roundtable on ChatGPT, co-sponsored by ESAP, the École Supérieure of Arts in Porto, Portugal. In the upcoming season, we are launching a new public program featuring our full scholarship recipients. They will be leading public seminars to open up their research to the public, also maybe find common grounds with other scholarship recipients to basically further their work. The only other thing I would like to mention before passing on the mic to Anna Chal is we are launching a very uniquely discrete transdisciplinary program with the help of our programmers called the Night School. We don't want to be too forthcoming with it, but it's an idea that was developed originally by Jason Mohaghegh, and then Reza and Cécile have joined to kind of like develop a program, hopefully with the help of Thomas, to bring in sort of like discrete, non-archived, and kind of like a more closed session think tanks which scholars will bring in for a one-time lecture and discussion with the group. Stay tuned about that. We should be able to like announce something by mid-October on this new night school program. Yeah, and if other people want to like delve into the night school, I think it's okay for them, but I think I just didn't want to say more about it because I think it's one of those things we want to keep it a little bit mythical and secret for now. But yeah, go ahead, Anachal, you can have the mic. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. If you're interested in knowing more about us, our programs, and our upcoming seminars and workshops, you can check out our YouTube channel and also access the website, thenewcenter.org. And if you have any questions that might not be answered along with the presentations, you could always write them in the YouTube chat so we can read them after. And now to introduce our programs. First up, and this is very exciting, we have a new program, History, Design, and World Making, which is led by Thomas. Working on the productive collusion between design, architecture, and philosophy, this program recognizes the historical roots of design and architecture and how various philosophies and theories shape these disciplines. Seminars in the program include one by Sam Forsyth, Abducting the Future, Strategic Thought and the Logic of Military and Political Inquiry, one by Lawrence Kent, who will offer Sapient Cinema, and David Auerbach will explore AI and the cybernetic life world. Another program is Transdisciplinary Studies, led by Jason Mohaghegh. It explores the unique collusion between literature, poetry, anthropology, psychoanalysis, cultural studies, media theory, the arts, sciences, design, and vernacular knowledge by engaging with strategies that capture complexity, cultivate new ecologies of knowledge, and affect individual and collective transformations. This program can be considered as an alternative to cultural studies or comparative literature. This program will include a seminar by Jason titled Illusion Chamber, Unreality Laboratory 1. We have Andrea Cetrullo leading the unique Individualism, Egoism, Anarchy. There is also Romulo Moraes, who will offer Metaphysics of Pop, the Aesthetic Structure of Recorded Music, and one by Thomas Michael titled Post-Medieval Derangements version 3.0. Next is the Critical Philosophy program under Reza Negarestani. This one is devoted to developing philosophy adequate to addressing the problems and questions posed by the 21st century, mainly the necessary transformation of concepts of reason and thought as they pertain to the development of artificial intelligence and automation. This season, Reza will offer a seminar titled The Draw of the Desert. Hilan Ben-Susan will lead one called Towards a Spectral Realism. There's another one by Joel White, Philosophy of Thermodynamics. JP Caron will return with Noise and Social Synthesis Part 1, Reappraising Attali and the Political Economy of Music. And Francesca Einier and Austin Gross will conduct Lethe, Impressions of Forgetfulness and Concealment. The fourth one is Art and Curatorial Practices, which is run by Cécile Malaspina. This program starts with the recognition that students enrolled are artists, curators, publishers, editors, and writers who have skin in the game of art. It thus fosters an emancipatory turn in the context of global digitization and climate chaos, from overall lament to a particular investigation of the possibilities for art in the long run. This season, she will be teaching the third installment of her survey seminar titled Techne Beyond Monoculture. We will also have Shah Sin-Wei offering a seminar titled Topological and Metabolic Approaches to Ontogenesis. A seminar by Ben Woodard exploring the well-worn knot, how Gilles Châtelet thinks about the formal. And we also have two workshops. There's a publishing workshop titled Methodologies for Writing and Dissemination by Maria Ines Plaza, founder of The Arts of the Working Class. And another one, which is a documentary practice workshop titled Between Verification and Construction by Manuel Correa, who had offered a theoretical seminar in the past season about documentary filmmaking. Of course, as you can tell, many of these seminars cover topics that traverse the programs. And if you check our website, you will see that a lot of them are cross-listed and don't belong to only one program. And now to start the presentations, I will introduce you briefly to each programmer before passing the Zoom screen to them. So presenting first is Thomas Moynihan, the programmer for History, Design, and World Making. Thomas is a UK-based writer. He holds a DPhil from Oriel College, Oxford, and is currently a visiting researcher at Cambridge University's Center for the Study of Existential Risk. Thomas is the author of X Risk, which was published in 2020, and Spinal Catastrophism, which was published in 2019. Currently, he is working on a book exploring how history's horizons have expanded throughout the past, as people have slowly woken up to the ways in which present action can scar the future for life on Earth. So excited to hear from you, Thomas. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Alan Chow. And yeah, thank you to Mohammad Reza, everyone, for inviting me to join as a programmer. Yeah, it goes without saying, but I've been a long-term fan and follower of the New Centre, so it's a pleasure to be on board. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that? Is that working?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Good stuff. Okay, so yeah, today I just want to attempt to delineate the ambits of this course and my ambitions for it. So yeah, the course title, History, Design, and World Making. So I want to start with a quote from Sellers, which I'm sure many people are very familiar from, but it pays to go back to the basics. So in 1962, Sellers articulated what he believed the practice of philosophy is. He wrote, "The aim of philosophy, abstractly formulated, is to understand how things in the broadest possible sense of the term hang together in the broadest possible sense of the term." That's my favorite definition of philosophy. He continued, "To achieve success in philosophy would be to know one's way around with respect to these things, not in that unreflective way in which the centipede of the story knew its way around before it faced the question, how do I walk? But in that reflective way, which means that no intellectual holds are barred." One very important way in which things hang together is the way we understand as describing how what came before produces what comes afterwards. Under another guise, we call this thing history. It's the word we use to describe how causes produce effects, or how what comes after is shaped by what came before. We use this concept to explain how and why things are the way they are, rather than any other way. And we can apply it at scales ranging from our own personal biographies all the way to the biography of our planet and even of our expanding universe. This program explores history in this broadest possible sense and how it orients us practically and theoretically, allowing us to interrogate why our current world is the way it is and how it could have been otherwise, in order to glimpse beyond to other alternately possible paradigms and perhaps point to ways to design new ones. Hence the title, History, World Making, and Design. So yeah, I want to kind of try and explain what I mean by the history, by history and what it means to be historical, therefore to unpack what that title is intending to mean. So what does it mean to be historical? I think that history describes the ways in which what comes before creates what comes after, in that very specific sense that had what's past gone differently, then so too would everything unfoldingly thereafter also be otherwise. It is therefore the domain of the contingent. For example, I understand that my personality today is contingent upon happenstances in my childhood, which did not need to have happened and could easily have gone otherwise. But history is also the domain of the indelible, where once events have gone one way, the alternate possibilities and pathways become closed off, such that contingency gains bite, as its consequences and legacies can be irreversible. Today, in the 21st century, we understand that the historical extends beyond our personal biographies to human society itself. That is, our institutions, values, and beliefs are often the contingent product of pasts which could have gone otherwise. But we also understand now that species themselves and the tree of life itself is also a product of history, where mass extinctions and indiscriminating decimations have shaped the long-term story of evolution on Earth. Further, we grasp that our planet and entire solar system is the outcome of ancient processes, also shaped by chance, where planetary environments can evolve in very different ways, leading to very different outcomes. And finally, we also now understand that the very elements all things are made from are the product of historical processes in the form of the Big Bang and resulting nucleosynthesis. We now understand, that is, that the universe itself, in other words, is a thoroughly historical thing. So I hope that gives a scope of what I include under the banner of history here. And so that said, I want this program to aim to attend to the historical in this broadest possible way, in all its guises, near and far, in order to uncover the contingencies of our current worldviews and institutions, so as to point to ways to fashion and design new worlds and ways of life, as that is the job of designers, artists, and architects. The core premise is therefore as follows. In order to practice world making, one first has to assess how worlds get made. It seems plausible that as philosophy itself has gained more history, philosophers have increasingly attended to the ways in which belief itself is insuperably historical, that is, shaped by quirks of local tradition and happenstance. This comes often under two guises, one critical and one constructive. The critical form could be called that of genealogy, which consists in the endeavor to reveal the inadequacy of belief by pointing to the ways in which attitudes depend on extra-rational precedents, such as quirks of class or upbringing, without which agents would not hold said belief. The second, constructive form, could be classified as the search for what's as yet unconceived. This involves exploring the ways in which our beliefs are contingent, in the sense that they could be otherwise, because there are alternatives which might explain the world better or guide our practices better, but simply these alternatives have so far remained unconceived. And I think that each of the three courses nicely covers both of these two faces of genealogy and exploring the unconceived. The ways human ideas and practices constitute and are insuperably constituted by histories was once considered largely a matter of human history alone. But again, and I think this is what makes this timely, in the 21st century, the arena of the historical, as I've defined it, where what comes before irreversibly and contingently shapes all that comes after, has spilt far beyond the remits of traditional history in its most orthodox sense as the chronicling of human affairs by other humans. What I mean by this is that we now, of course, live in the Anthropocene, where human action today is in scarring the entire future of the biosphere and imparting legacies and noxious heirlooms, which do not need to have happened, but will alter everything that comes next at potentially aeonic scales. Accordingly, and finally, the program, I hope, will attend to the fact that the contingent opens us up to accident, but also therefore carves a space for agency. The idea that, and the acknowledgement that things could have gone otherwise, illuminates how things can yet go differently, for better or worse, hinging upon present action and effort, and also design. The program then, I hope, will keep in mind that the historical is also the arena of emancipation, exploration, and autonomy. It takes time, in other words, to rectify our errors and arrive at better conceptions and practices. So yeah, just to close and wrap up, a brief look at the courses constituting the program this coming semester. So first, we have David Auerbeck's AI and the Cybernetic Life World. A former Google and Microsoft engineer, the brilliant Auerbeck's course will explore how our collective life world is historically constituted and thus open to being radically transformed by emerging technologies. Following a thread winding from Husserl to Sellers to Wiener, whilst elaborating his theory of meganets, Auerbach will assess how computational and informational systems, predominantly artificial intelligence, are extending the intersubjective in superhuman ways. I'm excited about all the courses, but particularly this one sounds very timely and very poignant. Second, Lawrence Kent's Sapient Cinema. Lecturer in film philosophy, Kent's course will explore the ways contemporary cinema tacitly and explicitly embeds aspects of world making by shaping our assumptions about the potentials of human agency through its portrayals of sapience and intelligence. He will explore how on-screen depictions of cognitive enhancement, superintelligence, and consciousness hacking have molded our assumptions so as to point towards ways in which we may yet rethink rationality in liberatory directions beyond its historically accrued racist, gendered, and ableist portrayals. Again, I'm excited about all of them, but this is going to be good, trust me. And finally, Sam Forsyth's Abducting the Future. Researcher in international security, Forsyth's course will inquire into the history of strategic thought, stretching from ancient Greek and Chinese writings on warfare through early modern statecraft, all the way to present-day practices of military futurology and global intelligence. Deeply informed by the pragmatism of Charles Sanders Peirce, Forsyth's course will reveal how practices of abduction and anticipation allow those in power to not only dominate the present, but also triage the worlds yet to come. Yeah, this course it covers a lot of ground. So yeah, again, I'm very excited about it. And that is it. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that Thomas joined us. Thomas joined us very recently, and we are hoping that he will be able to teach a seminar for us in the coming future, probably the following semester or the next one, but while carrying his responsibility as the programmer and bringing other people that would do the methodology seminar for his program. But yeah, we already have you twice in the archive, I think from 2018 and 19. And yeah, we're very proud of your contribution to the News Center and also those books. Actually, I had a chance to finish reading your second book throughout the summer, and now I'm reading your first book, and I'm just amazed at how well integrated your ideas are to like where we've been heading at the News Center with the help of Reza and Jason and others. And for those who don't remember, there's an amazing discussion as part of our Sheltering Places series between Jason and Thomas, kind of like foreshadowing this moment that he joined us regarding a lot of the stuff that interests both of them. We will try to find those links and kind of like post them for people to remember that like dialogue between our programmers date back to 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I agree. I think this program and its seminars couldn't have been more timely. And next we have Jason Mohaghegh, the programmer of Transdisciplinary Studies. Jason is Associate Professor of Comparative Literature at Babson College in Boston. His scholarly focus is upon tracking currents of experimental thought between the Middle East and the West, with particular attention to exploring the concepts of chaos, violence, illusion, silence, madness, futurism, disappearance, and apocalyptic aesthetics. He is also the co-editor of the Suspensions book series with Bloomsbury Press and the co-director of the 5th Disappearance Lab. He has published several books, the most recent of which are Omnicide, Mania, Fatality, and the Future in Delirium, and Night, A Philosophy of the After Dark, both of which were published in 2019. So please, Jason, can you tell us more about the program and the seminars?
Thank you so much, Anshul. It's good seeing everyone here. Transdisciplinary Studies, our program is embarking on, we always are looking to raise the stakes and be more adventurous and even outlandish in some ways to see what arises when we experiment at the outer borders of things. And so things have evolved nicely for this semester. They've aligned nicely in terms of seminars that all seem to be treading those outer edges of extreme experiences, extraordinary experiences of some different kind, but with a very acute and precise methodology to trying to unravel and untangle them. So I'll just jump into the courses, which are sort of in captivating alignment already. And we're starting with Thomas Michal's Post-Medieval Derangements. He has already taught a course at the New Center before previously, and it was such a mesmerizing sort of tour of images and cities and different sort of worlds of design that he was involved in that we invited him back. And this is wonderful because this is at the forefront of his latest research, where he is one of the few people on the planet that I know who are speculating that we are haunted in our late modernity by a recurring medieval derangement. And so we're in a sort of post-medieval condition that is leading us increasingly towards what he calls a new dark ages. I think it's a fascinating theory. And so as a very brilliant scholar of these movements, he begins with looking at medieval surrealism, what he calls medieval surrealism in the first week, in order to get us to what he's going to later call the post-medieval mind or post-medieval spaces of today, which are synonymous for him with experiences of excess, wild desire, wild profusion, things like that. But he starts with medieval surrealism, and particularly an iconic image that recurs in medieval surrealistic texts called the Horn of Plenty, which was a symbol of abundance and plenitude, and how it gave rise actually to theories of automaticity, which then influenced automatic writing and automatic art of surrealism in the 20th century. So that's week one. His week two is called Neurogothic Subjectivity, where he looks at the Gnostics, but also Gothic thinkers, their ideas of the bifurcated soul and soul vehicles, and how that leads into a kind of what he calls cyber-goth carnivalesque, which is still with us today. Week three, The Subtle Monstrous Body, is where he examines medieval creature typologies from the chimera to the homunculus, and how these new varieties of flesh in turn require new categories of sensation and self. And finally, in week four, Ecstatic Minds, he looks at everything from spirit possession to schizophrenic speech patterns, time travel, deja vu, premonition, blackout, all as movements towards what he calls a kind of alien thought, which is at the heart of the medieval imagination and which is now coming back with a vengeance in our contemporary world. So that's the course by Thomas Michal. Then we are going to transition to a wonderful course designed by Andrea Citrullo, who's a famed curator, podcast host, author, editor. She does many things at the same time, so truly transdisciplinary figure and just has wonderful taste herself. Someone who studies everything from mysticism to decadent literatures to all sorts of things. So she has devised a class for us called The Unique on individualism, egoism, and anarchy. And this is really a look at, above all else, those strange figures who sought individual freedom by breaking from codes of identity and dominant social collectives. So really it's a class that privileges the autonomy of the outsider, the outcast, and how this search formed the heart, or this motif sort of formed the heart of a certain kind of anarchism throughout history. But she's very, again, we've seen this before, some mythic variations of this, which have had dangerous consequences, but she's doing it in a very, very subterranean way and a more obscure way that I think is going to lead us down wonderful hallways of imagination. So the first week is on egoism, where she explores Max Stirner's work on the unique as a point of departure for egoistic thinkers who first perceived that there was this conflict between individual power and social conformity. In week 2, titled Retreat, she dives into the decadent writers, figures like Baudelaire, Huysmans, and the images of isolation, pleasure, and antagonistic creativity that they elevated. Week 3 is on aloneness, where she looks at a figure that I really wish was under examination more in the philosophical world and other disciplines, Michel Serres, looking at his figure of the silent wine drinker, and particularly how his meditations on sensory worlds that are irrelevant. So she's going to look at one of my favorite books by him called The Five Senses, absolutely wondrous book that she's going to give a sample of that week, where if anybody doesn't know it, the table of contents alone is a work of art. Chapter 1 is veils, chapter 2 boxes, chapter 3 tables, chapter 4 visit, chapter 5 joy. And so she's going to trace and demarcate how those sort of move from one to the other. And her final week, week 4, titled Margins, is about states of misadventure and fanciful delight that are found at the margins of social existence. But she's going to analyze this, and this is what makes it highly distinct, through the prism of the Brazilian witch Pombagira, who is a mystical sort of cultural icon. She's a figure that's depicted both as insatiable and wrathful in Afro-Brazilian culture. And she's often associated with the number 7, with crossroads, graveyard, spirit possession, witchcraft, all of these things. So she's going to look at these as part of, again, encounters and incidents with the unique and with the anarchy of individual experience. We go next to Romulo Moraes. Now, this is interesting. Of the 4 that I'm going to introduce today, this doesn't seemingly take us to the borderlands or the badlands of outsider imagination, because this is a course by Romulo on the metaphysics of pop, in particular recorded music, pop music. And this obviously is something pop we consider as something which occupies the center, of discourse and of cultural experience. But the way that he's going to unravel it for us is precisely one that's going to take it to a sort of level of exceptional strangeness. So he begins his class, and if you read the class description online, he begins with a very daunting, though perhaps very accurate declaration that pop music is the most impactful art form ever, and that no other aesthetic category, movement, or object has ever reached that many people with such dominating force in a planetary scale. And while sort of our critical edge goes up to sort of question what the consequence of that is, it is definitely a significant riddle that he wants to undertake as to why that is the case, to untangle why it is. And he's going to actually do this quite brilliantly through the broader history of rituals and mythologies that he perceives in the metaphysics of pop. So he believes that, again, beneath the surface, there is this metaphysical element which makes it capable of world building, designing atmospheres, becoming the embodiment of people's fantasies, and of forming different collective intelligences. In week 1, he opens the discussion about the distinctly global scale of pop since its inception, and that is something very crucial to get into, why it is that pop music has always been global since its very origin. Week 2, he looks at the so-called free manipulation of time and space that occurs in the setting of the studio, and how a technological symbiosis happens there with the apparatus of recording. Week 3, he looks at the phenomenology of listening and recording music, and how listeners of pop music generate their own scene, persona, and marketplace. And in week 4, he takes seriously pop music as a form of high modernist art with patterns of immersion, explosion, emancipation, and agency that compel us to put it in a weird way in the broader history of art and media. So that's going to be that course, that seminar that we offer. And then finally, I have an 8-week seminar. Been waiting, saving this one for a few years until it was ready. It's going to function as a kind of laboratory procedure rather than as a traditional seminar in the sense of readings and all that. Instead, seminar takers will bring their own archives for each week. We're going to explore I believe it's 15 or 16 different typologies of illusion: dream, nightmare, mirage, hallucination, fantasy, figment, spell, simulation, story, vision, rumor, superstition, miracle, game, and lie. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to arrive at each session, whether it's on rumor or on spell or on figment, with their own findings from any interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary forum. From video games to virtual reality, to visual arts, to music, to dance, to theater, to philosophy, to literature, cultural studies, political movements, whatever they think sort of plays in instrumental ways and insightful ways into defining multiple definitions and advantages of each one of these categories. And so hopefully we'll just have a sort of a Pandora's box eruption of possibilities in each one of these brackets. So with that said, that's the Transdisciplinary Studies program for the fall 2023.
Thank you so much, Jason. Really looking forward to these seminars. Now we have Reza Negarestani, our programmer for critical philosophy. Reza is a philosopher who has contributed extensively to journals and anthologies and lectured at numerous international universities and institutes. His current philosophical project is focused on rationalist universalism, beginning with the evolution of the modern system of knowledge and advancing toward contemporary philosophies of rationalism, their procedures, as well as their demands for special forms of human conduct. He is the author of Cyclonopedia and recently published Abducting the Outside, which is a collection of his writings from 2003 to 2018. Over to you, Reza.
Thank you so much, everyone, and hello, everyone. This semester, I've decided to somehow, kind of, again, inject some new blood to the program of critical philosophy. We, of course, always tend to, retain, a core of our instructors, so there would be a continuity in the program, but also this time we have, a number of new instructors. And of course, this time, the way that I thought about it is perhaps it would be great to, other than topics that have been somehow continuing for the past couple of semesters, we create a certain sort of a continuum of themes, such that there would be undercurrent connections between them, and a number of essentially courses in the upcoming semester essentially have that quality of having surprising connections, undercurrents or otherwise. So one of our new instructor is a Brazilian philosopher, Ilan Ben Susan, and those who are familiar with Ilan's work, Ilan has been, a certain sort of philosopher who has been, frequently oscillating between analytic and continental philosophy, and he has a very good grasp of both of them. For example, a good example of that would be his work on indexicalism. So Ilan was here in the spring, and always I tend to ask, what would be the most interesting theme that you would like to work on, and he suggested that he doesn't want to work on indexicalism, and instead is preoccupied with a new topic, and I said, okay, let's do this then. And so Elon suggested that he's going to teach a course on spectrality, and particularly what he calls spectral realism, as a what you might call to be a response, but also an engagement with the tradition of realism, a speculative realism, and so on and so forth. So the main theme of Elon's course obviously has a reference to Derrida and his concept of a spectrality, with the understanding that Derrida is quite adamant that the non-existence of the specters is irrelevant to their significance, right? Precisely because they have relevant effects. So what would be something that can be inexistent, but also has real effects, right? And this sort of what you might call to be milieu, which is that of the specters, obviously poses a lot of interesting questions for philosophy, not just for essentially its relevance to the philosophy of realism and metaphysics, but also essentially it has connections and weight, philosophical weight for engaging with this question of diachronicity, memory, time, and of course, the logic of finitude, mortality or immortality. So I think a good, kind of like capturing the essence of this course, is really, as Elon has suggested in his description, would be memory in its diachronicity, right? And that entails a number of subtopics such as inheritance, recollection, forgetting, so on and so forth. So that's Elon's course. And again, the next course would be again from a new instructor, thanks to Franziska Einer, who put us in touch. So the next course is, the title is Philosophy of Thermodynamics, and is going to be taught by Joel White. And the initial proposal that Joel sent me, which I immediately thought that it is magnificent and something quite relevant, was what Stigler has called Anthropocene, with regard to the entropic production, increase in entropic production, not just in what you might call to be at a cosmological level, physical level, biological, but also psychical. That's a lot of what you might call to be contemporary content of philosophy have perennial concerns and engagements exactly with the problem of Anthropocene, with entropy, and hence with thermodynamics in general. Joel's course is quite interesting again. It is at the intersection of analytic philosophy and content of philosophy, even though a series of main concerns and main questions that he's going to engage are really continental. So the course starts with this sort of background questions that he's going to hone out, formulate, and crystallize as he moves forward. And what are these background questions? Well, you can think about the question of thermodynamic and its ideologization in contemporary philosophical works. I would say from, I don't know, works of Nick Land, Ray Brazier, Simon Doan, Stigler, so on and so forth. But in order to explicate these sorts of contemporary engagements with the question of thermodynamics and its implications for the philosophies that are being presented by these philosophers, he has to go and look into two receptions of thermodynamics. One would be kind of early works by Helmholtz and so on and so forth, right? And then the bifurcation of the early works on thermodynamics into the analytic tradition, right? Under, for example, the rubric of a statistical physics, statistical thermodynamics, analytic philosophy of science, so on and so forth. And the other one would be, regular figures have responded, to the philosophies of thermodynamics of their own age. You can think about, I don't know, from Freud to Nietzsche and forward. And then moving through these two avenues, he's going to create an integration at the end, precisely because he has reached now, a sufficient explication of the concerns of thermodynamics and its implications. And at that point, is going to come back and look at the contemporary works, philosophical works, with either implicit or explicit thermodynamic concerns under the resources that he has provided throughout the course. So that's Joel White's course. And then the next one will be, of course, our instructor who has been with us for a while, Jean-Pierre Caron. This is the first seminar, and there will be a second one in the semester afterward. It's called Noise and Social Synthesis. And of course, it is connected to a number of our instructors and of course, Cécile's own work, Martin, and of course, Inigo Wilkins and his forthcoming book, where basically there is a certain sort of criticality towards the kind of classical or traditional understanding of noise under the rubric of ineffabilism, radical indeterminism, so on and so forth. But the way that Jean-Pierre is going to talk about noise is probably unorthodox, and that makes it quite unique and interesting. In the sense that through engagement with the work of Jacques Attali, and of course, the criticism of Attali's work by the likes of Châtelet, he wants to show that there is, in fact, this sort of critical engagement with the topic of noise can provide us with certain sort of categories that are not merely exclusive, to aesthetic theory, but really can be thought as categories pertaining to the modes of organization, as applied, for example, to economy and modes of social synthesis, right? And, having this sort of, philosophical approach, then he's going to, engage with, for example, the works of Karatani's, in terms of various modes of intercourse or exchange, right? And this also brings back Jean-Pierre's, previous courses at the New Center on Jonetti, Sondretto, so on and so forth, where he's going to make parallel between Karatani's, modes of intercourse, from kind of what can be said, from sacrificial, representational, to that of dominance and gift economy, redistribution, and of course he has different modes for them, not following the order exactly, up to communism as a mode of intercourse, right? Interaction and exchange in the domain of social synthesis. Is going to make a parallel move between these sorts of categories uncovered through engagement, a critical engagement with noise, and these modes of organizations, right, of economy and social synthesis. So this is Jean-Pierre's, essentially the core of Jean-Pierre's course. And as I mentioned, this is the first part of it. There will be a second part where he's going to move forward with these ideas, and I am pretty sure that he will, turn this into a magnificent project, philosophical project. The next seminar is by Franziska Einer and our new instructor, Austin Gross, and its title is Lethe, in reference to, the river of Lethe, river of forgetfulness. And this is one of those courses that somehow is a bridge between my course and Elon's course and a number of other courses in the other programs. So the main theme of Einer and Gross course is essentially the relation between forgetfulness and technique, right? That forgetting is a technical faculty, right? And it is not as if, it is what you might call to be the reverse of recollection, but rather it has a fundamentally different relation with memory, right? A different sort of technical relation with memory. I mean, this is, an old theme in philosophy where it is being said that remembering is a faculty of correctly forgetting, right? Usually, in a common sense, we think of the act of remembrance, right, as essentially, the act of memory as a remembrance, right? Pulling up memories, resurrecting them or reanimating them, as if, merely accessing what is in the memory. But of course, going through contemporary works on memory, either from the biological one, neuroscientific ones, so on and so forth, we see that the primary function of memory is actually forgetting, right? It is not remembrance in a common sense. And Husserl also has, a number of works on this, that the forgetting should be understood technically as a specific rearrangement of memory traces, right? So this is why that's from a general perspective, Einer's and Gross course is essentially about a kind of leitmotif of philosophy, right? That has been going on, since ancient times in philosophical works to the contemporary times, works of, I don't know, you can think about it, Heidegger, Stigler, Freud, so on and so forth, where we have the act of forgetting as a faculty, as a properly transcendental faculty, applies not only to the realm of what you might call to be memory and transcendental memory, but also to the realm of technical systems, writing, letters, to the psychological realm, right? Freud is a great example of that, to the political realm, and so on and so forth. And so this course really tries to shed light on this otherwise tricky subject of forgetting, not forgetting what has happened, but also sometimes forgetting of forgetting, right? To bring this to light and reveal its specific and explicit connections with technicity. And again, this goes hand in hand with Einer's previous seminars at the New Center. And of course, when we are talking about forgetting and memory traces, as I mentioned, we are also implicitly implicating specters and the themes brought up by Elon in his course. And finally, my own course, which is called The Draw of the Desert, and it was rather anxious to present this sort of course, precisely because I didn't want to give a course that would be, kind of just merely a rehash of some of my old writings, from Cyclopedia to the pieces written for Collapse, and so on and so forth. But I thought it would be actually, after all these years, it would be a great opportunity to renew this sort of engagement with the question of desert under some old themes which I've already talked about in the past, and some new ones. And of course, this course has a lot, to do with courses that Jason has provided, and hence this is also under transdisciplinary program. Not only Jason, I would say that a favorite author of ours, Ibrahim Al-Kuni, and he has been quite an inspiring, source, particularly for this course, because one of the preoccupation of Al-Kuni's as a writer, as a novelist, is the role of the desert as a certain sort of subversion of traditional novel and perhaps traditional philosophy, in the sense that Western novel, and in a sense even Western philosophy, is beholden to the question of place, right? City, urban place, the what you might call to be the hub of conflicts and relationships and ownerships. And precisely because of this sort of relationships that unfold in a place, you have a specific sort of encounter with time and technicity by extension. But does this mean that if desert is a non-place or a shadow of a place, right? Does it mean that it is devoid of time? Is it devoid of technicity? My answer is that absolutely no. It is just the case that precisely because the thought of the desert, the philosophy of the desert as a genuine philosophical topic allows us to have a different engagement with the question of time, technicity, mode of encounters with the existence of the human, and doubting that human, right? With freedom and the question of doubt. So, and it is so the course is going to be a kind of like an encyclopedic philosophical foray into the question of desert as a scaffolding for building not merely a non-Western philosophy, but a different sort of philosophy, right? Sort of philosophy that I mentioned that is not beholden to the question of place, but it has its own time and it has its own technicity, right? And by extension, if it has its own technicity, it has its own modes of efficacy. An efficacy which is not driven by means and ends relationships, but rather by conditions and consequences. And the various ways these manipulation or intervention or the change in conditions can unfold, an array of different possible consequences. And precisely when we look at this sort of stuff, then we see that, for example, militarization of desert, like, in contemporary politics, cannot afford something like traditional school of thoughts of warfare, right? Like planning, like tacticity. It would require a pure form of a strategy, right? In the proper sense of understanding a strategy always being tied to contingency, not to plan B, but understanding of the plan Z, right? So, yes, so it would be, as I mentioned, it would be, we will talk during that course, a myriad of subjects across politics, warfare, CIA espionage, mysticism, and perennial questions of philosophy like time, freedom, so on and so forth. But the course as a whole will always take a very philosophical approach, even if the topics of engagement might not be. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reza. I would enroll for all of them if I could. Let's move on to Cécile. Cécile Malaspina is our programmer for art and curatorial practice, and she is a visiting fellow at King's College London. She is the author of An Epistemology of Noise and principal translator of Gilbert Simondon's On the Mode of Existence and of Technical Objects with John Rogoff. Before turning to philosophy, she trained as an artist, art historian at Goldsmiths, and curator at RCA. Her main interest lies in the normativity of concepts, especially with regard to the aesthetic and ethical implications of conceptualizing contingency and uncertainty. Cécile, over to you. You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, that I agree. I want to join and listen to all the seminars as well. They sound absolutely wonderful. And I want to welcome also Thomas. It's so exciting to have you as one of our programmers. Before I start talking about my program, I want to say a couple of words about what it means to me to be at the New Center, and just say what an extraordinary place it is, and what kind of conversations we can have here that we don't have in the same way, with the same liberty in a university context. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, is that there's all these subterranean connections between the different programs, and the freedom that we have, each of us, to articulate these by following our own inclinations, the conversations we have with people, the inspirations we get from them, not least of which the students of the New Center. And that's something I really want to foreground. I've now really had the experience of working with the students from the New Center. I want to say something practical about the course, about the program, is that the students who sign up for credits do presentations that are an integral part of the seminar sessions. I think that's very important to say, because not only are these presentations incredibly inspiring, they often contribute to the elucidation of the seminar itself, because they tend to be on the texts that have been proposed by often invited speakers. And they are also a tremendous opportunity to really create a conversation. So this is, I would say, half of each seminar session is the students coming in, being part of the seminar session, producing work and discussing that. The other part of it is the essays that are written by those who sign up for credits. And I've been just so excited with reading those. It is understood that people come from different disciplines. I would say that you've probably gathered from all of the program descriptions that there is, as a common denominator, philosophy, not necessarily always as tackled directly as a kind of subject of study, but as a kind of attitude to the problems we face and that we analyze and that we deal with, a certain attention to concepts. And so those essays, it is understood, I just wanted to foreground this, it is understood that the students, so-called students, are often professionals, already working in the field of curation, or as artists, as designers, or even as academics. And some of them are literally students, maybe adults returning to studying, but also fairly young students who are only setting out. I'm mentioning this to take away some of the apprehension about writing. It is understood in assessing the work that the assessment is there in order to nurture what is there and not to kind of compare who has more experience in writing, who still needs to learn basic research skills, some of which I'm going to propose in the program in one of our practical seminar sessions. And yeah, this is, so the first thing I wanted to say about this program and about the new center as a whole is the intellectual community that it is, and that it is my huge pleasure and great honor to be a part of, a community with the other programmers, with Mo, who's really the kind of driving engine of the new center, and with the students who come from every corner of the world, almost from Latin America, North America, East and Western Europe, Central Asia, Southeast Asia. It's really quite extraordinary. And if I can do anything to increase the contingent of researchers and scholars and artists joining from the African continent or from anywhere else, but, nurturing, bringing some of their connections and relations with creative work happening across the African continent, I would really like to encourage that, and also draw your attention to the fact that there is a generous provision with scholarships too. So that's one thing out of the way. I'm going to say a few things now about the program itself. As it was said in my introduction, I did study when I was much younger, fine art and art history and curating, but I didn't actually pursue that career. So I'm very grateful to Mo for this freedom to be able to bring everything I've done since and all the things I've been interested in since back and kind of fuse it with where I set out. And so the spirit of this art and curatorial program isn't always to look at what is going on in contemporary exhibitions, for instance, although I hope in the future we're going to do more of that. And we had a very good seminar in the last semester about this too. It is rather fundamentally about looking in the same direction as artists and curators, looking at the world, at the challenges we face, and seeing how great care devoted to the concepts that we use can sharpen the prism through which we organize exhibitions or kind of curate other people's work or your own work and career as an artist. So one of the first seminar I'm going to present very briefly is a continuing conversation, you might say. It's started with a survey seminar called Techne Beyond Monoculture, and has been a rolling series of invitations. So one invited speaker per session, including, I think, a number of students who've come back from the first and second iteration, and I hope will come back for the third. The idea behind this seminar was to look at some of the contemporary challenges, notably, but not only, the climate, you could call it the climate bifurcation, or the choices and ultimatums that we're confronted with. And at the heart of this, to look at the role of technology. Now, often technology, as the title of the seminar indicates, techne is immediately a concept that we're going to kind of unpeel like an onion and look beyond new technologies at the idea of what is a techne, what is, how do we define the arts, how do we define the logos of techne, the reason of techne, and how do we understand intelligence as it is augmented and distributed through the things that we create. The ethos of this seminar was to say, if in terms of critique, often technology is understood to be the handmaiden to capitalism and a kind of driver of monoculture throughout the world, and in a way responsible for many of the detrimental aspects of industrialization. So we want to slightly turn this around and look at the conditions of possibility that we can think together with the concept of techne and logos and technology, and see in what ways can you uncouple some of the detrimental aspects of capitalism in the way that it kind of shoehorns what technology can be, and how can we think of what Yukui calls a techno-diversity. So how can technology be site-specific, attentive to singularities in cultural contexts, ecological contexts, and still thrive in a kind of global dialogue. So that was the idea behind this. I'm also very excited to say, so first of all, the speakers for this is going to be a slightly contracted version. In the past, we had 8 sessions. This one is 4. So we have as speakers Gert Loving, who is a foremost media scholar that many of you probably already know, Tiago Novaes, who is an anthropologist and Simondon scholar. He's based in Brazil. And we have a little bit of a Brazilian contingent here. For some reason, it's coincidental, but interesting. So we're going to see how this will impact on the conversation. We have Philippe Lacour, who is a French philosopher of science and technology, former colleague of the Collège International de Philosophie, where I'm also a programmer, and he's just finished his stint at the Collège, and he's based in Brasilia, at the University of Brasilia. And the 4th speaker is, I'm very excited to say, Eduarda Camargo, an artist, producer, and researcher based in Sao Paulo. I invited Eduarda because she produced a really very exciting essay for the last Techno-Beyond Monoculture seminar series, and I asked her to use that as a basis for the next presentation. So I'm really looking forward to this. The next seminar series that is called Topological and Metabolic Approaches to Ontogenesis. The connection here is once more with the Techno-Beyond Monoculture seminar, because the instructor is Xia Wei, who is a foremost mathematician and engineer and philosopher, who gave a presentation in the last seminar iteration that was incredibly popular and led to very lively discussions. And so he's coming back as an encore with his own little seminar series. I'm going to describe this briefly. If asked what the world is made of, he says in his description, we can say it's made of objects and categories, or we can say it's made of stuff. This seminar takes the latter proposition of stuff as a substrate or field. But instead of asking what stuff the world is made of, we ask how stuff changes, how things, relations, and sense resonate, emerge, transmute, and condition, but do not determine one another. Repurposing Galileo's legendary observation, eppur si muove, and yet it moves, we will read and discuss theories of dynamic, historicity, process, and temporality. So you can see there's a strong resonance with the other programs as well that I'm very excited about. So throughout this seminar, Xia Wei will, in the first session, workshop the most salient working notions from topological matter and dynamics, so that they provide a conceptual grip for the subsequent sessions: transformation, process, continuity, and field. And for anyone who's wasn't planning to do a seminar on maths, I just want to kind of insist that Xia Wei is someone incredibly generous with his knowledge, and he speaks in a way that really people from every kind of different background and field can come along and benefit from it. And I think you're going to enjoy this a lot. So session 2 synthesizes activating aspects of metabolism. So the concept of metabolism, and if you like, taken outside of the biological context, beyond physics and beyond computation. So this goes from vegetal biology and from emerging accounts of organism all the way to kind of more englobing concepts of metabolism and transformation. The third session is called Alloy Theories of Ontogenesis and Individuation. And the fourth session will apply all the concepts that Xia Wei will have developed in the previous sessions to the problem of making sense in common, or thinking together. So the next seminar series is called The Well-Worn Knot, How Gilles Châtelet Thinks About the Formal. And this is going to be run by instructor Ben Woodard. I was extremely happy when he wrote to me proposing this seminar, on the one hand, because we've both worked on a book that I've just checked is about to come out in 2024, Enchantment of the Virtual, Mathematics, Physics, and Philosophy by Gilles Châtelet. So this is a translation published by Urbanomics, in which a number of translators participated, amongst which myself and Ben Woodard. So Ben is an incredibly creative, out-of-the-box thinker, and I've always been really fascinated by the way that he approaches things, and I'm really looking forward to this seminar. I'm going to read you the description briefly. The philosopher Gilles Châtelet is an unfairly unknown thinker and activist, to which I might add outside of France. So this is something to do probably with translation politics. He's a contemporary of Gilles Deleuze. He synthesized extensive research in physics, philosophy, politics, and economics in order to develop a philosophy emphasizing formalization as something that emerges from the natural, while at the same time extending the wild creativity of the mind found in the tail end of French rationalism. In a similar fashion, Châtelet extracted a theory of the formal from German Romanticism and idealism, especially Schelling, by emphasizing an epistemic movement from intuition to the gesture, to the diagram, and finally to design. And finally to the sign, Following the Romantic tradition, Châtelet saw the actions of thought as processes of nature reflected back to itself in this broad understanding of the formal, where the diagram is the capture of the gesture before it is frozen in a letter or number. So this seminar will introduce Châtelet's work with a particular emphasis on the gesture, the diagram, and how they bring him close to, but keep him apart from, the works and thoughts of other philosophers like Deleuze, Cavaillés, and Merleau-Ponty.
I just wanted to add one thing here, because the book was already translated, but it was a badly translated book, translated into a title called Figuring Space, right? And I think Ben, until the actual book comes out, will still work off that first translation, right? Because based on what I saw on the syllabus, right? We're all excited about the book coming up, because I got introduced to Châtelet through Reza back in 2013. And I was actually shocked to know that there was no English Wikipedia for him. So with the help of friends who knew him back in France in the day, I wrote his English Wikipedia, which then got better and completed and used in the back of the first volume is work published by Urbanomics called To Live and Think Like Pigs, which was forwarded by Alan Badu. And I think Reza had a lot to do with that translation too. I can't speak for him, but like we were all very involved. So we're very excited that somebody's finally taking up, because that To Live and Think Like Pig is a critique of technology. It's not really delving into his kind of like mathematical and geophilosophy. So I think it's great that you got Ben teaching Figuring Space, or Enchantment of the Virtual, the real good English title. And we're counting days for the actual new translation to come out, because everybody, including Reza, agrees that the original translation is not a very good one. Actually misleadingly bad. Right, Reza? I don't know if you want to add a few words to it.
My apologies. Yes. No. Yes. What is the original title? Is Les Enjeux du Mobile, right? The stake of the mobile. Right, I think, yes. No, the translation is quite bad. I mean, the translation is not bad, but I mean, there are so many technical words which are completely wrong in that. Yes, I think Urbanomics wanted to create a new translation, but if I remember correctly, it was very hard to get the translation rights of Figuring the Space, the stake of the mobile.
I mean, all I can say is that it took, I was in the pipelines for a long time. I think I can't remember how many years ago I was asked to translate one of the texts by Robin. And I think even a few months ago, I asked, oh, is this still happening? Or maybe it was a year ago. I don't have a good sense. I'm very good at forgetting, technical forgetting.
It is happening.
No, just no,
happening.
actually, I checked and I saw it's happening. It's coming in February, hopefully. So I think this is going to be amazing. And for a non-mathematician like myself, who in another life, I would like to become a philosopher of mathematics, but it's just not given to me. I can't do maths. And yet, I just want to say this also for people who might feel this way and think, oh, I'm not going to do a seminar on maths. But actually, yes, it's when it's presented by really brilliant people like this, and you get just, the beginning of an intuition of how wild and creative maths are. I think everyone needs to do a seminar like this at least once in their lives. So I'm very excited also to have this cross-listed and to have this resonance going on with the other seminar, with the other programs. So this is Ben Woodard. I'll just move on to the next two more practical workshops. One is a publishing workshop called Methodologies for Writing and Dissemination, which is going to be run by Maria Inés Plaza Lazo. So in her description, she says, this workshop presents publishing as a daily practice. Like memes, social media posts, and conversations, publishing can take a meaningful role in the hyper-circulation of information if done reflectively, or just be a grain in a pile of sand if just following trends. So this workshop will look to discern collectively between knowledge production and wishful thinking, thank goodness, between real obsessions and superficial purposes. It will focus on the publishing of arts and the working class, a multilingual street journal on poverty and wealth, art and society, both as a political pamphlet and as a Gesamtkunstwerk or transdisciplinary art. AWC turns into a tool both for active organization and deep research. The two sides of this coin couldn't be more contrasting. For that reason, the seminar invites Erin Segal, social worker and publisher of Thick Press, to talk about her work, as well as Jonas van Lente to address the archival materials that are today. So this is the first in a series of workshop and practice-based seminar series, of which we're going to have more, I hope, in the future.
Just wanted to add that, like, as someone who introduced Maria to you and had several conversations about this workshop with her, the aim of the workshop is to actually produce something collectively, one or two, depending on the interest of the people. So there will be some outcome to look forward to out of this in terms of actual publishing. And she's also thinking of, if it's possible, maybe incorporate the outcome of the class in an upcoming issue of the Arts of the Working Class, which would then give it like a global dissemination. These are conversations I just had with her yesterday, so I haven't been able to update you with it because she's very excited and she lives in Berlin. So we actually have a real real person kind of like connection and friendship. She's also working closely with Baden-Baden Kunsthalle as their publicist and PR person, and we'll see might play a role in the PR and public publications for the upcoming German pavilion in Venice Biennale. We'll see. I think the entire team of Baden-Baden would somehow be involved, because my friend Chala Ilk, who is the co-director of Baden-Baden, is picked to be the curator and commissioner of the German pavilion. So there's a lot of like ideas floating around. Even like New Center might be involved with doing something with the German pavilion. We'll see how it goes.
Very exciting. Very nice. I might, in light of this, I might just read the for the description of the 4 sessions, which I just a second, which I forgot to do for the Châtelet seminar. So I'll come back to that after this one. So in session 1, Maria is going to introduce the structure and struggles of arts of the working class. Publishing without certainties is to be certain about how you look for in numbers, colors, contributions, paper materials, and shipping destinations. So this is introducing the practical aspect of the seminar. Session 2 is about collaborating out of necessity and joy, a discussion with Thick Press. So this is with Erin Segal as an example, as well as the presentation of their book projects, discussions of the name, form, and content of the final project. So I presume this is referring to the final project that the students will be doing. And in session 3, she will be talking about publishing as an interrelation between curatorial and archival work. So the experience of Jonas van Lente and Wirklichkeit Books at Bauhaus, Imaginista, and Kunstverein München, discussing and commenting also on the final project's first draft. And in session 4, in the wrap-up, that is titled, How Would You Do It? So this will consist of group presentations, followed by peer-to-peer reviews, and a final look at the publication. So I presume this is referring to the potential publication project. So I just want to come back to the Châtelet seminar, the well-worn knot, how Gilles Châtelet thinks about the formal, because I think I didn't give the breakdown of the 4 sessions. So the first is going to be about The Last Romantic, introducing the preface and introduction to the old translation, Figuring Space. Session 2 will look at the Philosophy of Science, Chapter 5, Electromagnetic Space from Figuring Space. Session 3, The Critic of Averages. So here, the average man as statistical degradation of the ordinary man is going to be the topic at the center of this session, from To Live and Think Like Pigs. And in session 4, The Angry Monist will ask, getting hands-on, but with what? From the Enchantment of the Virtual. So this is a text, and reading an optional text, Kant on the synthesis and time by Gilles Deleuze. So this is going to be more of a comparative session. So before I close, I want to introduce the last seminar, which is called Publishing Workshop, Methodologies for Writing and Dissemination. So we're amplifying the practical aspects of the art and curatorial program, which I'm very excited about. No, sorry, what am I saying? This is a documentary practice workshop between verification and construction. And this is going to be run by instructor Manuel Correa. So the description for this seminar is a workshop that introduces participants to the investigative potential of audiovisual images through practical exercises such as spatially situated testimony collection, audiovisual reconstruction of places, and open source intelligence. Participants will explore their personal research interests from this novel perspective and produce a piece in a medium of their own choice. He says, we all carry cameras with us all the time, everywhere, and this is why the narration of global events has undergone a radical change in the last decade. The impact of cell phone videos and photography on documentary practice is evident in the documentation of social outbursts in Colombia, Chile, Argentina, or Hong Kong and beyond. By finding dissemination on the internet, these audiovisual images bypass traditional channels of journalism and analysis, complicating the notion of source truth. Their analysis and media framings play a vital role in world making and in the consolidation of political narratives. So this workshop is going to explore various research strategies, the conceptual development of projects, and the innovative techniques at our disposal to deal with testimony and editing. In session 1, there will be an introduction to the students of the workshop, presentations and objectives, discussing the final project and guidelines for the pitching exercise, and explaining the technique of situated testimony and its relevance in contemporary audiovisual research. So this first session will also be referencing works by Gianfranco Rossi, Forensic Architecture, and Errol Morris to understand the application of situated testimony. Session 2 will provide technical insights and support for the final project. Students propose their pitch and their final projects, sharing their research interests and ideas, and will be introduced to open source intelligence, or OSINT, OSINT, and its role in audiovisual research and documentation. Session 3 will explore soundscapes, listening, and video editing techniques, and a lecture on the significance of soundscapes in audiovisual narratives and how to effectively use them in investigative practices. And the last session, and I'm going to conclude my presentation of the program with this, in the last session, students will present their projects, and each project will be critically evaluated and discussed by peers providing feedback. And there will be a review and discussion of the various creative approaches and methodologies used in the projects. So I'm very excited about these and very excited to see some of the students I met in the previous seminars again and to meet new ones, hopefully.
Thank you so much, Cécile. That really is an extraordinary lineup of seminars and workshops. And with that, we conclude presentations on the upcoming seminars. You can find information about all of these on the website. This semester in particular, we are also offering for the first time practical workshops, which our student services representative, Rafael, will tell us more about, alongside some FAQs about the applications and a reminder about our upcoming seminar series.
Yes. Thank you very much, Anchal, for the introduction. I'm Rafael. I am the representative for at the New Center. I have also been a student of the New Center. I have engaged in multiple manners with the New Center, helping organize some of the programs and also like participating in some of the programs. So it is a pleasure to speak to you. And I'm going to briefly, since a lot has been said about the workshops already, I'm going to focus on the frequently asked questions that usually students are interested in, and questions that I receive on student services at thenewcenter.org. I'm just going to post this on our live stream. So if there is any question that I did not cover so far, please email me and I'll be more than happy to help you. Okay, so going to the frequently asked questions. So I think this one was very much covered by everybody's contribution here. But why a certificate is one of these recurring questions. I think that one of the main things that we hear from the students, from their testimonials, and from my experience working with them for almost 3 years, I think now, is that the certificate is particularly helpful in expanding our network and helping also people who want to transition within other areas, subjects, or expand their horizon within the humanities, meaning that even for established scholars or practitioners, which we usually have in abundance, also enrolling in our certificate program, there's a lot of interesting implications for that. And we are also welcoming not only of people within the humanities, but also people from outside of the humanities that might be interested in expanding their horizons in the humanities. We have had physicians, we have had professionals from IT, professionals that were really focused on design, engineers. We had people from all sorts of walks of life and backgrounds and joining our programs. And we also keep an opportunity for people who want to return to their education, who might have been involved in the past on academic endeavors and then drifted off from those research interests. We also like to say that we welcome these people to begin pursuing their interests outside of academia, or even in the intersection between academia and their own practice. In terms of steps for completing a certificate, so I think basically we are talking about the the completion of 10 seminar credits. You can see the breakdown of the credits on our website. Basically the main schedule that we talk about in terms of the certificate program and everything is that in the first year, usually people finish those 10 credits. And then in their second year, they have time to work on two consultancies with their programmer and work in their final project. And also during that period in which usually in between that period, we also have consultations for career advisory and any other types of support required with our organizer, Mohammad Salemy. And each seminars are completed as for grades that are split between attendance, group presentations, participation in class, and also the delivery of a final work that can be an essay, artwork, or anything agreed with the instructor. We encourage a lot of people to bring what they are working on at that exact time, because we believe that we come as a new set of tools for practitioners that already have many interests and many things. So you are welcome both to develop something that you are not familiar with, but also to bring something you're familiar with and bring it closer to the themes of the seminar. And yes, I think that covers it pretty much. In terms of time balance, a lot of people who I've spoken to also on through student services, they have been asking questions about how difficult it is to conciliate the new center with other work, practice, and current activities. And I believe this is a difficult one because it is a very case-by-case basis type of response. But we had students who are in between degrees, as well as people who have other part-time or full-time jobs in universities, design, art institutions, or even from other specialties. And we tend to be very flexible to the pace in which students fulfill their requirements. There's also a very large pool of seminars to choose from. And aside from always taking 2 seminars from your program, 2 credits from within your own program, we do not place many other requirements onto students, and we tend to be very flexible with both with the dates and everything. As you're going to be able to see in our seminars page, there's a lot of options for fulfilling the credits and graduating. And in terms of scholarship eligibility and application documents, we usually ask for a letter of intent and a writing sample. If you have been thinking about applying, you probably have seen these requirements there on the form, but neither of them has any harsh formal constraints. What I do personally recommend, though, is that the letter is very specific to why you are applying, why do you need financial relief, what is interesting about the new center for you, and it can be a brief document of 2 pages maximum, and it should highlight all these points so that it makes it clearer for people, the admissions officer, to evaluate your application. And in terms of the writing sample, we usually recommend you sending a document which can be a part of an unpublished text or something that you have already published. And the important thing is that it is something that you believe that display your writing and theorizing qualities, as well as tells us a little bit more about what you're interested in. And of course, we understand that many people might not have something that is entirely 100% up to date to what that which they are interested in, and so on and so forth. But it is always interested in, but not to worry about this, because you can also explore that in the interview you can schedule with our admissions officer afterwards. So there is plenty of, we give plenty of room for you to show yourself and speak about what you're interested in, and get a chance for applying for the scholarship. And it should be mentioned, as Anshal has already mentioned, but it should be repeated, that we prioritize students from the Global South, but we also have a record of giving full and partial scholarships, and 50% of our scholarships recipients are women. And yes, I think that about covers it. And I would like to encourage everyone to apply. I might sound suspicious for this, because I've been around the New Center for the longest time, but I believe it is precisely because I have been around the New Center for the longest time and doing many different activities with it, that I believe that everybody should give this a chance. The application process is very, as you can see yourself, it's not It's very straight from it, as you can see from the selection of seminars, are really, really impressive. And
I just wanted to add something to what you were saying.
tell
And
me
I think
more.
you kind of like, you implied it, but I think it's important for people to know that the 10 credit seminar is what is required, but throughout the 2 years of ongoing programming, we don't even take a summer break, right? Like our two seasons actually overlap in a way, right? Like certificate students are allowed to take as many seminars as they wish. The only difference is during the first year of their studies, they have the first priority. And in the second year, they have second priority because some of the seminars could be popular and there might not be room in them for, so we go by those who are completing their first year, which is like the first year with the 10 credit, or those who are kind of continuing on. And we've had students who in the first year, they did 16 credits, right? Like they're just like, because they don't have other commitments with other institutions, or they're not doing a PhD or master's elsewhere. But we also have people who basically did 2 or 3 each semester or season. And together at the end of the 2 year, they managed to do their 12 or something, right? So very flexible that way, right? And the workshops, it's some of these workshops, because they're very popular, we offer the workshops to the people who are coming in the first semester, not even the second. And then for everybody else, there is a process of like writing a short application saying why you want to be in these workshops in particular, because as we noticed, they are very popular and it's very easy to overbook them. And then the time would not be managed properly by the instructor divided between students. So we really have to be a little bit selective about the workshops. But people who are coming in for their first semester in, they will automatically be considered for the workshops of that season or semester. And everybody else will get in if they like. We have people who really wanted to be in the writing possible objects, but because they applied too late, they couldn't get in. But they agreed to roll into the prompt writing workshop, for instance. So, and also writing workshops and prompt writing workshops and AI engagement workshops are things that we will probably try to organize one every year, as we're already talking to Cécile and other people to organize our next writing workshop for the next semester. Yes.
Yes. You just got the spoiler. Yeah, you just got the spoiler, a bit of a spoiler from the upcoming season. But I believe, reiterating just a tiny bit on what Mohammed said, there is plenty of flexibility. We always have the recommendation that people usually, like the traditional breakdown is that people finish their credits within their first year and then they focus on the work on the second year. But we know from a lot of our experience with students that being flexible is always what works best. So we have dealt with many different situations in that regard. And there's also the freedom to actually distribute those credits around the 2 years and work simultaneously on the final project and so on and so forth, which is this flexibility has proven to be very important to our student body. And yes, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the programmers for such amazing presentations. And I echo what Cécile was saying, that it really gives you the urge to take every single seminar while you're listening about them. And I pass the word back to Anchal to close it up.
Yeah, thank you, Rafael. I'd also like to thank the programmers and the viewers for watching and for their time and attention. That's all from us, and hopefully we see you in the seminars. Bye.
Thank you.